Hi, Sarah. So we were really fortunate that you approached us when you were doing your master's degree at UEL in positive psychology and coaching psychology to conduct a research study with young people. So what we're talking about today is the findings of your qualitative research study into peer support and our for young people, adolescents, and our Wellbeing Ambassadors program was where you draw the research participants from, and also the program that you were investigating. What were your reasons for wanting to conduct research with positive psychology, coaching psychology, and young people specifically?
I think because we know that mental health disorders in young people have increased, and even more so after the pandemic. And positive psychology is all about the science of human flourishing, and so how people thrive, how organizations thrive. And then coaching psychology is looking at that conversational process of facilitating positive development and change. So the two together, I just thought that, if we can engage young people in how to support each other with their well-being, then that sounds like a brilliant approach. And then you guys were doing that. So I wanted to look into how it was working and what the impact was.
Yeah, brilliant. And then we kind of decided together, didn't we, what were the best kind of intervention to investigate, and came up with the Wellbeing Ambassadors.
Yes.
What do you know? What's your current understanding, or what did you learn about peer-to-peer support as a helpful intervention for early mental health problems for young people?
I think the peer-to-peer support capitalizes on kind of the natural social influence that young people have on each other in their adolescent years. Your research shows that young people are more likely to turn to young people when they're going through things. They want to speak to their peers, over adults. So it seems like a really good initiative to capitalize on to support them in helping each other deal with the things that they face. So yeah, it's just giving them the tools and equipping them to best support each other, because they're talking to each other anyway. So, but are they equipped to really help each other?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like they're more, yeah. How qualified are those friends? It's like qualifying a friend, isn't it? To give them the tools, to give them the skills to support each other. And all the mental health first aid and all those kind of campaigns around mental health awareness, they're like, ask for help, ask for help. But if nobody knows how to listen, or if
Yeah,
nobody knows how to respond when somebody asks for help, is it kind of worse to say ask for help and then the help not be there? That's one of my
right,
ethical dilemmas that I have all the time. So
right.
yeah, so young people are always going to be more likely to turn to a peer or listen to a peer than they are an adult. And like that's why I started to get interested in peer-to-peer support. Really, like about 2016, we started doing peer-to-peer interventions. Because young people were telling us, and we could see in the group work that we were leading group work, but they were supporting each other. So
Right.
let's share the findings from your study and see what you find out. So talk me through this diagram then. So explain your research. We haven't explained your research method. What research method did you use?
So, so part of the goal, when I looked at what was currently out there, there are a lot of peer-led initiatives, but the scientific evaluation of these is quite sparse and inconsistent. It might be down to kind of the diversity of the field with peer support. There's lots of different names out there. You've got buddies, peer counselors, mentoring. There's lots of different names. So that might be part of the reason, but there has been some there's kind of been improvement over the last couple of years. Department of Education was like, we need to assess kind of what is being done out there right now and try to glean some kind of best practice, because there's
Mhm.
loads of initiatives happening. What is the best practice? And from that research, some of the gaps, which is where I chose to focus, was on the importance of mentor training and also how you choose those mentors, so mentor selection. So that was kind of where I decided to focus. So you can see in kind of that, looking
Mhm.
at your program, Wellbeing Ambassador program, and deciding to focus on how Wellbeing Ambassadors were selected and how they were trained. then that first column, peer support, was just like a general, one of the research was showing that we haven't actually heard from young people themselves what they deem a peer. Like the question, what is a peer? What would you? So that was kind of a whole separate piece that I was looking at, just in general, what they think of peer support. And then lastly, the fourth column, again, was a general sweep of, okay, what do they think affects the success of a peer approach to supporting each other with their mental health and well-being. That's kind of the overview.
Brilliant. So let's talk about, we won't go into so much about what is a peer, because I feel that would be a whole separate conversation, but just talking about the nature of peer support in general, I think that these are useful qualities and factors to consider in order to enable your program to be a success. I mean, we'll come on to this because this is very interesting to me as a person who creates programs for schools. But also I came to that conclusion myself as well. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about these four things: relatability, confidentiality and security, community, and mental readiness. We also haven't said that this is voice-led research. Tell me about the participants that were in this study and how you recruited them.
So so the research was twofold in looking at these areas that needed kind of more evidence, more of an evidence base. But then the second part was realizing that there was just involving young people basically in the research. There was a real need for that. There's loads of initiatives out there for mental health and well-being, but the research showed that people knew there were initiatives out there, but young people, it was like 75% of people knew what wellbeing offers they had going on in their school, but 25% of them said they would actually use it. So that again was a big thing for me. I was like, okay, there's a clear misalignment here between what we are offering young people and what they actually want.
Absolutely.
So that was the other aspect of this research. So it was the voice participation, voice-led, young people-led. So I did focus groups. I ran a couple of focus groups with the mentors, the wellbeing ambassadors themselves. I did 2 focus groups, one to involve them in just kind of gleaning their experience, so that data collection, but then I invited them back for the analysis of, okay, this is what we found. Now I've interviewed the mentees, the younger peers, and then I invited the ambassadors to come back and have a look at that data as well. So they were involved in the analysing of both voices, the mentor voices and the mentee voices, and given input then into the development of the programme. So
yeah, and the themes that you've come up with.
Yes.
And what ages were the young people that you interviewed?
So the mentors, I think, were between the ages of 16 to 18, and the mentees were, I think, 11 to 14. So
yeah, so like a good demographic of adolescent phases and like years of school and things like that. I mean, what we tend to find when we run the program is it tends to be year 10, 11, 12, 13 that are the ambassadors, and then year 7, 8, 9 if they're using it for a peer mentoring program. So just a bit of background on the Wellbeing Ambassadors program: it isn't strictly a peer mentoring program because of some of the reasons that we're going to be probably talking about as to why I don't call it peer mentoring exclusively, because it's more than that. It's about training wellbeing young people up to be these skilled helpers that lead wellbeing initiatives, and they decide themselves what that's going to look like in certain schools. Some of the schools that we use our program want to use it for peer mentoring explicitly, and I think they were the schools that took part in this particular study. But also that aligns with the research findings, doesn't it, that a lot of the interventions, and I think even the government is what are saying, that peer mentoring is peer support, but it's not. It's more than that, isn't it? It's more nuanced than that. There's more different variations of it. So you're kind of using the term mentor a little bit interchangeably. It's not always strictly mentoring, but it's more mentoring in your research than some of the other videos and content I talk about in Wellbeing Ambassadors. Mentoring is one of the use cases, I would say.
And I guess all the schools that participate in the Wellbeing Ambassador program there's differences in how they implement it, right, in each school. So the schools, I worked with 2 different schools, and the way the schools that I worked with were using it, they had set it up more as a mentor mentee.
Yeah.
But I understand that it's
Yeah.
differentiated in different schools.
So this is like a niche within a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, and especially interesting for schools that want to think about using a peer mentoring program, or thinking more, either narrowing it down to do that, or thinking more broadly around peer support. And actually, it doesn't have to be mentoring. You know,
Right.
it helps them make an informed choice as to, is this the right kind of intervention, especially when we look at factors that affect success and the reasons why. Not that your research isn't successful. It's very successful, very, very relevant and very helpful. But sometimes I find in the schools it can fizzle out because it's logistically challenging, and it's not because of the intervention not working. It's because
Right.
there's so many moving parts, and we're dealing with teenagers in a secondary school, which is
Yeah.
automatically challenging before you even do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
let's talk about these peer support
So these are kind of the sub themes, I guess, that came out when asking the question, what do you think about young people supporting young people with their mental health and well-being? So generally, the consensus was we think it's a good idea and it's better than adults supporting young people. And one of the things was relatability, just closer in age, they understand what it's like. Perhaps they've been through a similar situation really recently. And then kind of the confidentiality and security. Some of the young people were saying how adults might react to something I'm saying and then want to escalate it really quickly. That makes me not feel safe to share what I'm going through. Whereas someone more closer to my age knows it might not be that serious as a teacher might take it. And, yeah. But interestingly, with that though, there is kind of a question around professionalism as well, and when it needs to be escalated. And some of the ambassadors, that's kind of a hard one to juggle as well, and feeling confident about
So
when
that's like about the boundaries and the role and responsibilities, and clearly defined boundaries and expectations about what their role and remit is as a wellbeing ambassador or as a peer mentor, isn't it? That they
yeah
feel safe in that knowledge. That's where
yeah
the training's essential.
yes
You can't just set it up. This is it's really important that whatever program you use, even if it's ours or somebody else's, that you do invest time in training the young people who are going to be involved, to talk about confidentiality, talk about safeguarding, helping the young people build rapport and feel safe, and all of those kind of things. That's why it works, isn't it?
yeah
That's the foundation.
yeah
Yeah.
exactly.
What? Yep.
And
Carry on.
then, so community, I thought this was a really lovely one. I'd like to read it, just a couple quotes, just because it was really lovely. I think one of the big benefits of involving young people in helping their peers with their well-being is the community aspect. And so one of the young people said, it's like everyone's standing up for each other. And now it's like having a bigger friend to help you, or there wouldn't be people who would go out of their way to help you other than teachers before
Yeah,
this program. So
I love that.
it's you expect a teacher to look out for you, but now it's you've got older people in older years who also look out for you, which I thought was really lovely.
Yeah, and I think that's where, like, some of the other applications of wellbeing ambassadors that isn't strictly peer-to-peer one-to-one mentoring, that's why it works. It's that community aspect.
Yeah.
It's that knowing that there's other young people that have got your back, that are in your school, that you might not even need to speak to, but you just know that they're there. Like,
Yes.
creates this ethos of belonging. So
Right.
yeah, love that finding too.
Yeah.
Okay. And the mentor readiness, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so this kind of came up as a sub theme with both the ambassadors and with the young people themselves for different reasons. So the young people, whilst the majority of them, the younger peers, the majority of them loved the idea of young people supporting young people. Where there was hesitation was whether that mentor was qualified or able to support them. Teachers have a natural authority. You trust them. You think they know what they're doing. And with a peer, it's a bit like, how, are you competent? And so some hesitancy around that. And then the ambassadors talked about wanting to feel qualified, but but they, yeah, are we trained? Are we adequately trained to be able to handle what comes our way? So yeah, that was kind of the theme that emerged there.
And that relates back to the confidentiality and security, isn't it? It's like role and remit. It's like, do I know enough? And what I was reading in your research was around like more of a coaching approach, and when it was more effective is when they felt safe, that they didn't have to have the answers. And that's why I struggle with mentoring as a concept, because mentoring is hierarchical, where one person has more answers than the other person and more information than the other person, which is why I don't think mentoring is the correct term for this kind of intervention, because it's not really mentoring.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which the kids were saying in the study, weren't they? They're saying like, it's not really mentoring. Well, they didn't use that language, but they were saying, just having someone to listen to me, and I don't feel like I have to tell them what to do or give them the answers. It makes me feel more able to help them and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't be able to articulate exactly the difference perhaps in the training, but we know that it's the coaching approach of the program that actually enabled them to feel less pressured that they needed to have all the answers. And it was the thing that the younger peers really appreciated, is not being, or when they didn't appreciate it, it was when they were being given a lot of direct advice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Talk to me about these ones here.
Yeah, so previous research as well as my research showed that the matching process between the mentor and the mentee was considered crucial. What I found was more than age of a peer-to-peer, it was relatability and compatibility. Because you could have had a young person supporting them, but if they felt that that person wasn't compatible, didn't, even personality differences, that didn't gel either. So it was both compatibility, relatability. And so I put from 6 interviews with the younger peers and then 2 different focus groups. 63% said there should be a matching process to ensure the right pairing, and then 100% made reference to mentors being chosen based on their personal qualities and abilities. So who they are. I loved how some people said it was who they are indiscriminately, like not just to their peers or their friends, but kind of the character. They wanted mentors who had kind of good character and were generally kind of dependable and good examples.
I love that. There was one bit I read, it said, I know the colour of their heart.
Yes.
That's such a beautiful,
that was
thing
in 7.
to say.
When I was there I was like, this is so beautiful. I said, how do you think a mentor should be chosen? And he said, by the colour of their heart. I was like,
Boy said that too. It actually makes me want to cry. It's so insightful and wise though, don't you think? Like when we listen to young people, and they might not have the same language as what we have, but if we really listen to what they're saying and what they're trying to get at, it's amazing.
It is, yeah.
And then matching, and that's where I think secondary schools struggle, is matching, because it's just the logistics of it all, isn't it? And then the availability. And one of the schools I was working with, I was training them to be wellbeing ambassadors, and they had this idea of a little like passport or a little profile with a few like a picture of them and a few bullet points about what they liked, so that they could and put it around school, so that on a poster, so that other kids could get to know them a bit more. Like it wasn't just a name on a spreadsheet,
right?
Had a bit of an identity. And then what did you find about what they wanted more from the training?
Yes, so I'll start with what they loved, because the things that kind of kept coming back up was just the interactive part of the Wellbeing Ambassador program training. So simple things like listening. They said how they taught listening, these basic concepts, it was brought to life. And they talked about how it impacted them in their everyday now. So even how they listen to their parents or their friends, like the stuff that they'd learned had a wider impact than just in a mentor-mentee relationship, which I thought was really good. There was a lot of practical tools around relieving stress, encouraging mindfulness, and they found that particularly helpful. So yeah, I mean, I've got some quotes here about the interactive activity on listening. They said was the biggest eye opener. One of the ambassadors said, now when I'm listening to someone talking, I know that there's a chance that I could be interpreting it completely wrong. So it's to know when to clarify and ask openly to make sure that I understand.
Love it.
Yeah,
Again, so insightful.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like 16-year-old.
I know. Yeah. So that was, so yeah, so they loved all of that. And then in terms of what they wanted more of, and this interestingly came up for both the ambassadors and then also from the younger peers experience, was this idea of questions. So asking more questions. So the younger peers felt like they could have benefited from being asked more questions. And some of them talked about how I don't feel comfortable just, oh, sometimes I don't know where to start. So being asked more questions helps me connect to the different things I'm feeling and things like that. And then the ambassadors talked about, yeah, if someone's closed off, you know, being able to know how to kind of, yeah, help people feel safe, what questions to ask. So it's that balance between, I think in the training they were taught, you know, let it be mentee led. So let the young person just share, you know, whatever is on their heart, which I think is a good starting place. But I think then also the help to know how to get the conversation going seemed really important as well.
It feels like they need a bit more structure if they're going to use it for mentoring type.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy to oblige. Yeah, anything else? And then you covered the practical tools and activities. So they're like the wellbeing strategies,
Okay. Yeah.
aren't they, really? I mean, in the schools that aren't using it for strictly one-to-one interventions, what they're doing is they're taking like the practical tools and activities and the kind of way of being of an ambassador, and then devising either school-wide campaigns, going into assemblies or going into tutor time and sharing some self-help strategies around coping or stress, or a lot of stuff around kindness and things like that. Or they're making leaflets, or they're doing assemblies, or they're doing things on social media to kind of, so it's much more early prevention upstream. It's almost like public health type stuff, but it's devised by the ambassadors and led by them so that the other young people are more paying attention to it, because they know that their friends or other young people have created it for them, for their school. So it's not just like the 5 ways to well-being, you know, posters or
Yeah.
something they've downloaded off a website, like for Mental Health Debt Awareness Day. They've actually made it based on what they know that the school community needs.
Right.
So the emphasis is slightly different on the schools that aren't doing it as just purely one-to-one mentoring, but it's all there. It's just in different emphasis.
Yeah.
If you want to join the Wellbeing Ambassadors program, go on the website and join the Wellbeing Ambassadors program. You get access for 2 members of staff for 3 years. And I will be adding a bonus workshop based on Sarah's research and findings and extra tools and resources in order to incorporate all the young people's ideas, because I really think they're valuable and they're right. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So look forward to those updates soon. So thanks, Sarah, and I'm going to sign off now.